on Tuesday the 29th of March. Could we begin, please, with apologies for absence? Councillor Wojciech-Prochai and also Barry Flux. And I think that's it. Yep, okay. So that takes us on to disclosure of members' interests. Has anyone... Yes, minutes first, but I'm just going to do the declaration of members' interest while I'm on this point. Guy Renner-Thompson.
As a director of NEL, I would be taking part in the second part.
Thank you. Any others? No. Okay, so we'll move on to minutes of the last meeting now. You've got a copy of those. I plan to sign those at the end unless there's any questions. Can I take those as being agreeable to everyone with a show of hands, please? Proposed by Councillor Renner-Thompson, seconded by Councillor Horncastle, all in favour. Thank you. So now we move on to the report of the Interim Executive Director of Planning and Local Services, the adoption of Northumberland Local Plan 2016 to 2036. I'm going to ask Councillor Horncastle to do a brief introduction to this as the Cabinet Member responsible, and then I'll ask Rob Murphy and Joan Sanderson to take us through any specific points they wish to raise. Colin.
Thanks, Leader. Right. Well, this is a seriously important document. This is something that this council has been working on for about 10 or 12 years now, ever since LGR, and we started off all those years ago putting one together, and a lot of members on the working group from cross-party working group worked on it. And then at the election in 2017, the then leader of the council decided to withdraw that one, and we started all over again. And so after 4 years' work, here we are, we have it. And what I would like to say, first of all, is that the previous one we worked on, even though it got to its final stages and was presented to the government, probably would not have got past government scrutiny, because of the huge housing figures that it had in, would have meant that there was so much land was taken out greenbelt, especially in the Hexham and Ponteland areas, and it may not have got to fruition, and we'll be back to square one anyway. So here we are with this one. Sensible housing figures in it, over and above what the government wanted. The inspector herself has said that it has praised the document as a positive document, but what is this document? This new local plan is it's a blueprint for the future of Northumberland, because previously all plan applications, whether it be household or business or anything else to do with tourism, etc., were operating under 20-year-old district-wide local plans, which were totally out of date for the modern Northumberland economy. So since those plans, these district-wide local plans came into being, Northumberland has changed quite a bit. We've got a very ageing population. Tourism is now seriously important to the economy, but we've also, in recent times, with the creation, or what will be the creation of the huge British Vote Factory and all the associated works around it, and the opening of the rail line and all the mixed use down the side of the rail line, we needed modern policies to make all these things happen. And that's what this is. So all the old policies eventually, if this is adopted, will be wiped out. Everything behind the scenes will change. It will speed up planning applications. It will mean that planning officers in the north of the county can actually handle applications in the west of the county, whereas before they couldn't, because you need planning officers that were very familiar with their local plans, and something like the Tynedale District Local Plan was seriously complicated, and we're getting horrendous backlogs of planning applications. Pre-apps will all change, and before pre-apps were done by planning officers, well, now they'll be done by a policy team for more consistency. We've got a new validation system. So all in all, what we're saying is that the adoption of this local plan is modern policies to suit the modern economy of Northumberland is much needed. It should see a massive boost to the economy of Northumberland. It was a cross-party working group. We think the figures in it are correct. It must be, because the government inspector obviously thinks it's good. Now, it is not the end of it, because this is really a live document. There's things happening to it all the time as we proceed. And it will also help us to bring in new design policies, which are much badly needed, because all of us at planning have complained over the years about these horrible designs that large developers are putting in. Well, we're going to bring in design policies and all sorts of other things, technical things that Rob will mention in a moment. So the important thing is that we agree this today. There's 2 recommendations. The second recommendation is the very long one that goes from A to J, and we've got to adopt every single one. You can't pick and choose. It's either all or nothing here, otherwise it's not going to work. So you've got 2 recommendations. I'm sure Rob will come in now with the more technical side, but this is a brilliant document. Thousands of hours of work have gone into it, a lot of hours from work from members as well. And as somebody who sat on the working group, we all agreed that the process all the way through. So I shouldn't think there's much resistance to it. And so with that, I'll just hand over to Rob. But they're the 2 recommendations that later on the Cabinet, I'm hoping, will agree.
Thank you. Rob and Joan.
Thank you. Is my microphone working? Okay, yeah. Just to add on to what Councillor Horncastle has set out, I can confirm that the plan is going above historical trend on both housing and employment growth. That's been tested and checked with government and found to be a reasonable, proportionate but aspirational approach. Just to confirm, the housing numbers can be accommodated without greenbelt deletions for residential development. I would also add on that the plan seeks to weave in lots of new agendas and really give them teeth in terms of corporate priorities. So the plan goes big on things like climate change, on tackling health inequality, and how we respond to some particular pressures in the county. For example, the problems of affordable and local housing in some of our coastal and rural communities. I would also add on that, yes, there has been a cross-party steering group all the way through this process, but there has also been multiple rounds of public engagement, so landowners and communities and individuals have been able to have their say. And also finally, I can confirm that every single parish and town council has been involved all the way through this, and their views have always been sort of been reflected in the plan we've come up to. So all in all, it's a plan which balances a strong aspiration for growth while protecting what's special about the county and giving teeth to lots of new agenda areas such as climate change. Thank you. I'll just bring in Joan at this stage, who's actually been the manager responsible for pulling this all together, for her just to give us some more technical context about the actual decisions in front of us.
Thank you, Rob. So as Rob's mentioned, it is a plan for growth, but I think we need to mention the fact that whilst it's going to be an up-to-date basis for planning decisions across the county, it is recognised that the world doesn't stand still as well, and that it is a flexible plan, and it does reflect the changing needs of Northumberland's economy. So I just really wanted to put that out there as well. So in terms of the recommendations in front of inspectors in front of members today is that we sort of consider the content of what the inspectors have said in their report on the examination of the plan, and the fact that they've recommended main modifications to the plan as well. So what we're asking members to do today is to endorse and make the following recommendations. So that is to consider the content of the inspector's report and the main mods, adopt the local plan as set out with the schedule of main mods from the inspector, With that, then after that, if subject to adopting the plan, there's a whole host of recommendations that we need to do in terms of the technicalities going forward and the legislation. So we have to then we recommend that council approves the adoption of the plan at their meeting tomorrow. Also adopts the policies map, which is also subject to modifications. Approves the adoption of the policies map as well, and then agrees that it supersedes the old plan, so that they are revoked, and that will be done at the end of the judicial review period on the 12th of May. And listed in the recommendation is all the former local plans and core strategies, which will be revoked. We've also got a number of supplementary planning documents which are, have either come to the end of their life, they're no longer useful, or they will need to be replaced through the new supplementary planning documents that we're proposing to do, because they're linked to old plan policies and we can't link them to the old plan policies anymore once them plans have gone. Just to note the adoption statement, that's a statutory statement we have to put out there, and we send that to everyone who's been involved in the local plan process and who's on our local plan database and who's been involved in the examination. We also do like a bit of a public notice on that as well, so there'll be a statutory notice going out, and that basically sets out the intentions that we have adopted the plan, where it can be viewed. We have an adoption statement, we have a sustainability appraisal post-adoption document that we have to do as well. And once that's done, that's out there for that the 6 weeks judicial review period where someone can come forward and they can challenge the plan in terms of the judicial review, in terms of it's to do with the process and procedures of whether they're being fully followed. And the last recommendation is, just in case we see any minor textual errors or anything like that presentation in the final document, it's just to seek delegated powers for the Cabinet Member for Community Services alongside the Interim Executive Director of Planning and Local Services, just to basically sign them off if we do come across any. I don't know whether you want to mention the nutrient neutrality, Rob, issue as well.
Yeah, there's also been a paper circulated in that, as we just said, time doesn't stand still, and throughout the preparation of the plan, through the examination in public, and through the latter stages of this work, government keeps coming out with new policies, guidance and legislation. One of the more significant ones that came out a couple of weeks ago was on nutrient balancing in terms of rivers. And for some local authorities, that could have had a very significant effect on land allocations for the future. However, we've checked this, and there's a short paper confirming that the plan isn't adversely affected by this new legislation, and we can handle the provisions of the new Act via the planning application system. So that's just to close off a point of detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob, and thank you, Joan. Are there any questions or points that anyone would like to make? Yes, Colin.
I'll just make another comment that all the neighbourhood plans may have to be reviewed to see that they are in line with this new local plan, Rob. That's correct, isn't it?
Yeah, Councillor Horncastle. I think it's fair to say that the first generation of neighbourhood plans that were prepared in the county, and we were a national pilot for this work, did try and address the fact that they were working from a local plan base that was significantly out of date. So they did a lot of filling in the gaps compared with the old district plans. I think it's fair to say that the more recent neighbourhood plans have been prepared in light of the local plan being on the way. So there will be a more pressing need to fundamentally amend the older neighbourhood plans, and the most recent ones may just need a slight tweaking or refinement. But all new neighbourhood plans will be based on the new local plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. John.
Yeah, thank you. Question for Rob, really. You know, I think it's great that we've got to this point for the adoption of this plan. And, you know, it is aspirational. You know, we're an aspirational county. And, you know, we've done great things in attracting new business to the area and, you know, the likes of British Volt, etc. Have we actually got enough employment land in this plan going forward? Is that something that we're going to have to review more or less straight away?
Thanks for that, Councillor Riddle. Yeah, we made a big play in the examination in public in front of the government inspector that we could not realistically base employment land take-up on the extrapolation of historical trend, because that would have given us a relatively low need for employment land, which was more of a reflection of the economic problems of the last 2 decades. We went for a significant above-trend release of employment land, and indeed, this was one area where we did some minor greenbelt releases to give us some further employment land. Given that when we submitted the plan, the Northumberland line, with its 5 new railway stations in the county, hadn't been agreed, even at an early stage, that the British Volt scheme and other transformational investments hadn't happened, and neither had we signed up to either the North of Tyne deal or the Borderlands deal, that we didn't really have the evidence, concrete evidence, that we could say, yes, we will need X more employment land. So instead we went as far as we could do and released significant amounts more. But you are right, is that one of the areas that the local plan review may need to look at will be employment land, particularly in the southeast of the county and along the line of the Northumberland line corridor. Okay, and that's been discussed initially already as part of the scope for a potential review. Okay, so just to summarise, we went for a significantly above trend release of employment land, as much as we could argue, but since the work on the plan over the last 2 years has been it's an EIP stage, that we've got much more robust information about the needs for employment land, and that will help form the basis of further review work. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Guy Renner-Thompson.
Thank you, Leader. I would just like to welcome the plan from a particular point of view of my coastal parishes. This plan is different from many other national plans in that it imposes a restriction on parishes that have over 20% of their housing stock is second homes. Any new houses can only be for principal occupancy for local people only. I know that's something that will be welcomed in a lot of the parishes I represent. It also has a clause in that any developments within the area of outstanding natural beauty have a lower threshold for affordable housing. In the rest of the county, it's 9 houses in the AONB. Any development of 5 houses will need affordable housing requirement. That, combined with our budget of nearly £50 million of affordable housing, will go a long way to tackling the issues these coastal communities face with the new pressures they have with our increased tourism market. We need homes for local people, and this goes a long way to solving that.
I think you're absolutely right, and that almost £50 million over the next 3 and a bit, 4 years for affordable housing is a huge political step for us to take, and a real commitment to deal with the issue around the need for affordable housing, particularly up in your area, up the coastal towns and so on. We really are onto that, so that's very positive, and thanks for raising that. Jeff Watson.
Just a very quick question, Rob. Will this, when the local plan is in place, will it actually have an effect on things that have been already passed? I mean, otherwise, will it have retrospective powers? I think the answer probably is no, but I just need you to confirm that.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. The short answer is no, you do not retrospectively look at planning applications that have already been passed, but it also cuts both ways in that at any one time we have, at least 1,000 applications going through the system, and they need to be decided on the basis of the plan in force at the point that they are determined. So if the application's been in for 6 months and the plan comes out, when it is determined, it's not determined on the basis of the requirements on the day it was submitted, but on the days it was decided. So it does cut both ways. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, well, if I can just sum up by saying that the decision to say that we need a new local plan in its entirety was a difficult one. Back at the beginning of the last Conservative administration in 2017-18. We know that the previous administration had spent significant time on drawing up a core strategy, but we did not feel it was fit for purpose. We think this ticks the boxes necessary to see Northumberland move forward over the next decades. We think it will put the right houses in the right places, the right amount and at the right price. We think it will positively encourage more business to have the confidence to come and invest and set up in the county, which is hugely important for jobs and for the advancement of those people who desperately want a new start or a new job. I do want to thank staff that have been involved in this. I can speak from experience of having set up many meetings with local parish councils to see Joan and her team, and every meeting has been friendly, helpful, and without any problem at all. I think the way that our teams have done all the consultation, have gone to village halls in the middle of winter and met hundreds and hundreds of people to allow them to have their say in this local plan has been exemplary and a perfect example of very good officer working, and I'm deeply grateful for that. So here we have the final article, and I think we all should feel very, very positive about moving forward with this local plan. It's due to go to council tomorrow, and I hope very much that council approves it. And certainly, I think I'm right in saying that the cabinet are very, very strongly supportive of this local plan as being the right thing for the right time in over the next few decades for our county and for the people and our residents. So we have the recommendations. Would anyone like to propose those? Proposed by Councillor Horncastle, seconded by Councillor Riddle. Could you show if you're in favour, please? That is very strongly unanimous, and thank you again very much indeed for all the work that you've done on this. Sorry, yes?
Leader, could I just say, quite rightly, the right people have been thanked for all the work they've done, but there's another person that hasn't been mentioned that should be thanked, and that was when we started this local plan. I was the chair of the local plan working group, and Councillor Riddle should be thanked as a portfolio member, because he was the link between that group and the officers and the cabinet, and he was there all the time. So a big thanks to Councillor Riddle.
Yes, thank you for that. Indeed, completely agree with that. Thank you, John, for all the work that you did on this, and colleagues cross-party. Okay, so that's fine. Thank you very much indeed. That takes us, I think, to the end of the open session of Cabinet, unless we have any urgent business. I've not been advised of any. So can I thank you for joining us this morning, and we now have to take a vote on whether we exclude the press and public. Can you just, proposed by Councillor Wearmouth, seconded by Councillor Patterson, are you in favour of that, please? That's unanimous, so thank you all very much for joining us this morning.